I was just a few moments ago figuring out that Miles, 25 years, davening here, he said Elliot was 35. And in the course of that conversation, coming around, John Kolker reminded me that John, how many years you've been here? 77 years, Yontif services at Beth congregation. 77 years. Folks, if you're leaving, the sermon's actually happening now. That's up to you. It's up to you. So let's just do a quick survey. So 77 years for John. Anyone else been here 70 years? Brian, anyone else 70? A couple of people. Harvey, is that Harvey in the back there? Okay, 70. Mendelssohn's, okay. Okay. Howard. How many, 70? How many 60? If you've been here 60 or more years. 60 or more years. Jerry, you're only 57 years old. If you've been here 50 or more, raise your hands. 50 or more. 40 or more. 30 or more. Yeah, it's one of the things that makes the congregation truly special. It really is. Just this long continued history. This is my 27th year. 27th year with you for High Holy Days. And I figured out it's the 30th year of my life giving High Holiday sermons, because for 3 years before I came here, I had student pulpits that I was working. So that means math. Howard, check my math on this. Just having turned 60, conducting High Holiday services for 30 years, so half of my life I've been giving sermons on the High Holidays. Is that right? It's a miracle. Okay. So half of my life, and in the course of that time, a million topics. I've touched on baseball multiple times, certainly the Grateful Dead multiple times as well. Charlie Brown, I preached about the shofar, about loss, about family, the importance of family, the Lord of the Rings, abortion, talked about gay marriage one year. List could go on and on and on. But I realized, thinking about getting ready for the holidays this year, that I have rarely talked with you about a topic that's important to all of us, and in fact, a topic that has to do with a lot of what we do during the holidays, which is the topic of prayer. And it seems odd to me that in all of that time and all of those years, I have so rarely talked about the one topic that we spend so much time doing together, right? Praying. I mean, here we are, and throughout the holidays, we have a prayer book in our hands. We sing and we chant and we read, and what we're singing and chanting and reading is liturgy. And I've been thinking about why it might be that I have so seldom, if at all, talked with you about this very thing that we do together throughout these holy days. And if I've ever talked with you or told you about my own personal feelings in terms of prayer, what is prayer to me? What do I think I'm doing when I'm praying? Do I think God is involved with that? If God is involved with it at all, and how does that work as well? So on this most prayerful day of the year, which I think Yom Kippur is, our most prayerful day of the year, let's talk a little bit about prayer. And I want to first tell you a story. The story comes from the world of football. Often I tell baseball stories, and yes, my Mets are having an unbelievable season. But this story comes from the world of football. And I'm going to take you back to the NFL season of 2000. You'll probably remember the Ravens won the Super Bowl that year in the season of 2000. But you also probably will recall that did not seem like a likely outcome just about halfway through the season. There was a 5-game stretch in that season where the Ravens did not score a single touchdown through 5 games. They kicked a lot of field goals, but they didn't score a single touchdown. And they were a rather pedestrian 6-4 when they rolled into Tennessee on November 12th to play the Tennessee Titans. Had they lost that game, they would have been 6-5 at that point, and highly unlikely probably to make the playoffs, and I think no way going all the way to the Super Bowl, despite having one of the best defenses in the history of the NFL. Now, in that game against the Titans, the Ravens were losing with less than 30 seconds to go. Less than 30 seconds, the Ravens were losing the game when Trent Dilfer, some of you will remember Trent Dilfer, hit, anyone remember who he threw the touchdown pass to? Patrick Johnson. There's a trivia question for you. Patrick Johnson, it was a 2-yard touchdown pass, 23 seconds left in the game, and that tied the game. That made it 23-23. 23-23. And then Matt Stover, remember Matt Stover, right? It's hard to, Matt Stover calmly walked onto the field. He kicked the extra point, and the Ravens won the game 24-23. And the rest was history. They did not lose another game the whole season. They didn't lose another game the rest of the season, won the rest of their regular season games through the playoffs, and of course won the Super Bowl. Now at this point, you might say to me, Rabbi, those are great memories. That's all very nice. And halavai, it should happen to the Ravens again this year, right? But what does it have to do with prayer? And so I'm going to try to answer that question with part 2 of the story. The Monday after the Ravens' victory, the Monday after that Tennessee Titans game that the Ravens won so narrowly, young man shows up at morning minyan. And happened to be there that morning, and when minyan ended, I went over to him and I said, I knew him a little bit. Have you had a loss? Do you have a yahrzeit that you're saying for someone in your family today? And he says, no, Rabbi. He says, last night I was watching the Ravens game, and they were losing. And at the end of the game, as they were driving down the field for that tying touchdown, I was praying to God that they would score the tying TD. And then when they did, I prayed to God that Matt Stover would make the kick and the Ravens would win. And I said, God, if Matt Stover makes the kick, I'll go to minyan for a full week. He was a man of his word. Mark remembers. And Matt Stover makes the kick, and he comes to minyan the whole week. And then the next week, he comes the whole week. And the next week. And then, why? Because every week he's saying to God, if the Ravens win. And when the Ravens reached the Super Bowl, he said, God, if the Ravens win the Super Bowl, I'll go to minyan for 3 months. And he went every day for 3 months. And I haven't seen him since. It's true. He did move out, but I've always wondered, what if the Ravens had lost? So he wouldn't have come to minyan. And what about the prayers that he prayed for the Ravens subsequently? Because he must have prayed for the Ravens the next season too, right? It worked for him once, but the Ravens didn't win the Super Bowl the next season. Didn't he pray for them? Or if he did, his prayers didn't work. They worked one season, but they didn't work the other season. Is it that sometimes God listens to prayers and other times God doesn't listen to prayers? And then why would that be? Why would that be? Does it make a difference if we pray better, sometimes God pays attention, and if maybe you don't pray so well sometimes, God doesn't pay attention? This is the time of year when we are praying more than any other time. I mean, there's no question about it. And that book that you are holding in your hands, the Machzor, the High Holiday Prayer Book, it is page after page after page of prayer, word after word after word. The prayer compositions on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the most complicated by far of the entire year. And many of them, like Kol Nidre last night and the Elah later this afternoon, those are unique. They are only said on a Yom Kippur. And we sit here in shul and we pray and we pray and we pray. We recite the words. What are you praying for? We're praying for life. We're praying for peace. We're praying for health. We're praying for Israel. We're praying for family. We're praying for friends, people we know who are sick. We're praying today for Gemar Chatima Tova, means we should be inscribed in the book of life. We're wishing each other Shana Tova. That's a prayer. You should be blessed, right, with a good year, all of those prayers. And I've been thinking, as the holidays are getting closer and closer, and the news has been getting worse and worse, that this is a year when many of us might be sitting in the pews confronted with all of these words and all of these prayers, and sitting here feeling that so many prayers were not answered in the year that has just ended. Prayers for release of hostages, for example, have not been answered. Prayers for protection of IDF soldiers. Prayers for peace for Israel. Maybe they're personal prayers that some of you have said in the course of the year, just in your own heart, in your own soul. Maybe you're praying for family, maybe you're praying for friends, maybe you're praying for health, maybe you're praying for hope. Was the prayer answered? Was it not answered? Why are some prayers answered and others are not? To go back to football, how come the ball goes through the uprights sometimes and other times it sails wide? That's a tough question. It's a hard question. It is a question that people of faith have been pondering for a long, long time. I mean, many, many thousands of years. And there are traditional answers to that question that have been proposed over time. You've probably heard some of them. One of them is that God does answer all prayers, but sometimes the answer is no. That's a traditional response to that. One of them is that, there actually is a plan. This is a traditional answer to the question of why some prayers are not. There is a plan. There's a plan. The plan is even working. It's just that we can't understand what it is. We don't understand what it is. And there are other traditional answers as well. Not a single one of them has ever been satisfactory to me. In my job, I spend too much time sitting in hospital rooms with families. Forget about hospice rooms with families. To believe in a God who's randomly picking and choosing which prayers to accept and which to reject. Let alone the fact that we live in a post-Shoah world after the Holocaust, and now a post-October 7th world. And to say that there's a plan, that the events of the Holocaust, for example, or October 7th, for example, were part of some kind of plan, I can't live in a world like that, and I cannot be in relationship with a God like that. But I pray every single day. Every single day. In the morning, Tallis comes on, tefillin go on, prayers are said every single day. And I want to go back to my young football fan for a second. He was not the first person in Jewish history to misunderstand prayer in the way that he did. Not the first person, by any means, to believe, to think that prayer is an exercise in quid pro quo. It's a moment, mistakenly, he thought, when we ask God for X, Y, or Z, and then God decides to grant that thing or not grant it, the ball goes through, or the ball sails wide, and if we get what we ask for, then we have to respond in some kind of way. Go to Minyan, for example. This afternoon, I hope you'll come back for the Mincha service. In fact, I hope you come back for the whole afternoon. Yom Kippur afternoon is wonderful. It's wonderful. But Mincha particularly, and at Mincha we read one of the most famous texts in Western literature, the Maftir Yonah, the book of Jonah's prophecy, Jonah the prophet. And you remember that story very well. I'm sure I don't have to tell you the narrative. Largely, Jonah's story is a story of prayer. It is a story of prayer. The sailors on Jonah's boat pray that the boat won't sink, and their prayer is granted, and the boat stays afloat. Jonah prays. It's actually a long prayer, one of the longest prayers, if not the longest prayer in the Bible. When he's swallowed by the giant fish, He prays he should be released, and his prayer is answered, and he's released. But then, at the end of the book, his prayers don't work exactly the way he wants them to work. Things don't work out the way he thinks they should. It's like the young football fan praying for the kick to go through the uprights, and it missed. That's Jonah. And when Jonah doesn't get from God, the response that he wants, he decides the whole thing's not worth it, and he rejects the whole thing. He rejects God, he rejects faith, and even if you think of the details of the text, he rejects life itself. He says, I just want to die. But despite the fact that Jonah was a prophet, he was wrong. He misunderstood the purpose of prayer. Prayer is not actually so much about God. Prayer is about us. The purpose of prayer is not to change God's mind. The purpose of prayer is not to bend God's will. The purpose of prayer is to sense God's presence in our lives, in this room, in our community, in the world. Because if through prayer you can feel a sense of the deep, incredible, beautiful mystery that's all around us in the universe, if through prayer you can feel connected to things that are greater than you, if prayer can give us that, then it can change our lives, transform our lives. To put it another way, prayer does change the world, but not because it changes God. Prayer changes the world because it changes us. That's why I pray every day. Prayer enables me to see the beauty in the world. Prayer places me in the story of Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, and reminds me that I'm a link in a chain of an ancient and sacred tradition, and I have a responsibility to make sure it continues. When I pray, I think less of myself and more of others. I think less about what I need from the world, and I think more about what the world needs from me. When I pray, within myself, I discover strength and hope and courage and faith that I never would find in any other way. And those things have enabled me to face the most difficult and challenging moments of my life. Of all the prayers that I've offered over the years, thousands and thousands of prayers, I honestly don't know if they had any effect on God in any way whatsoever. In fact, I doubt it. But those prayers have profoundly changed my life. They have deepened my soul and helped me to be more the person I hope to be, And certainly they have helped me to be a better Jew. Isn't that what we all come to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur hoping and praying for? To be more the people we know we can be and to be better Jews in our lives. So come and pray with us this year, not just today. We pray all year. We're open 365 days. And as the old saying goes, I'm here all week, right? You don't have to come every day. But we do need your help. We need your help. Evenings, we are struggling to make evening minyan. Please come. Come once a week, come twice a month, whatever it is, 5:45. Help us make that minyan so people can say Kaddish. Our Shabbos mornings, Bruce talked about it, are filled with incredible, beautiful moments, joy, communal celebration, study. Friday nights are filled with song and soul. If you come, if you pray with us, you'll grow as a person. Certainly you will grow as a Jew. And in all of that growth, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, together we will be strengthened, and the world itself will be a better and brighter place. Shabbat shalom, shana tova.
Shabbat shalom.